Hello, welcome to the podcast, Everything Self-Love and Recovery. Today I have Tony H., who hails in Fargo, North Dakota, and I've met him online and I just want to introduce you and ask you to come in and tell us a little bit about yourself, Tony.
Thank you, Wendell. My name is Tony. I am an alcoholic. That's how I identify myself as in sharing these in these podcasts. A little bit about me is I was born in Bogota, Colombia. At age 5 is where I was taken away from my family and into an orphanage. Now, that is my one of my first memories of fear, is that I did not know why I was there. I didn't know what the next thing was going to happen to me. I was scared, lonely, and eventually, at 5 years, a lot of people don't adopt kids at 5 years of age, usually like babies. But at that time, I think I've developed a thing called alcoholism right away. I was lucky enough to have been adopted by a family from West Central Minnesota. Is if you know geographical, changes there, that's a major change for me. It is from one of the hottest places on the planet to one of the coldest places on the planet. And I came in just before Thanksgiving. I experienced my first snowfall. It was beautiful, it was amazing, and right away I fell in love with the snow, the cold, which a lot of people think I'm crazy because that I'd rather prefer
Including me, but go ahead.
yeah, people think I'm crazy because I love the cold, but you're from Bogota, Colombia. How is that even, how does that happen? Well, anyways, I grew up in a smaller town. There's very little diversity, minorities and Hispanics, whatever you want to call it. And I felt out of place. And eventually, at that time, they didn't keep my language. And so eventually I lost my language. So yeah, believe it or not, I used to speak Spanish. Now I have a somewhat of a Norwegian accent, but I don't know. Some people say I do. I don't believe it. But anyways, so I grew up in this family and there are struggles, on there. Some emotional and the physical abuse from my mother, my adopted mother, and some from my brother. But that to me did not, I don't believe, made me an alcoholic. Through high school, I mean, I was a very shy kid, just shy. I just did not feel like I was a part of anything. And I felt that way throughout high school as well. I really didn't think I should be even on this earth because I felt so out of place. I was very suicidal, had a lot of suicidal thoughts, but not, didn't take the next steps into doing that. I did discover alcohol later on. Some people, find it right away in their earlier days, but I didn't start drinking till I was about 17. And oh my gosh, I'm going to tell you right now that I believe alcohol saved my life because I was on my way out. But then there was a solution, and there was a ease and comfort when I took my first drink. And I felt like everybody else, like the way I was meant to be. And I loved that feeling. And I, chased that feeling all my life.
Absolutely.
And then, I ended up put into a mental institution and chemical dependency unit. And at that time, that's when I was exposed to Alcoholics Anonymous. Um, but I'm one of those, they say in the how it works, those who do not recover are those who cannot or will not give themselves to this simple program. And it was simple. They told me everything that, I hear still today, get a sponsor, go to meetings and be a service. And I thought just go to meetings would just be enough, and sooner or later, maybe I can drink again like a normal person. That is my story. That is my story of in and out of jails and institutions. Um, separations, divorce, loss of jobs throughout my years. It is, I look back at it, and I can be caught in that past and I'm feeling with guilt and shame. But today it doesn't look like that. Today doesn't look like it. I feel free, and I feel free from this obsession of alcohol. Now, I had dabbled in drugs, here or there, but they never did anything to me or for me, I should say, like alcohol did.
Awesome.
So, and my alcohol is my crack. My alcohol is my cocaine. My alcohol is my meth. I mean, it's better than any sexy woman out there. You know what I mean? Like I will take that over anything. And some people are like, "What? Crazy." All right. But it has always been my solution. And my mind will tell me that I don't have a disease. It will trick me
Absolutely.
saying that, oh, it's not that bad. I mean, yeah, you got a DUI, but you only have one of them. Well, go through down the years, I end up getting more and more and more. And it's just like, well, you have five DUIs in the span of what, 20 some years. They can't be that bad.
Wow.
And that's the only time like I got put in jail. I mean, okay, I have a couple disorderlies, a couple what do you call them? Domestics, you know what I mean? But nothing major. It's not like I went and killed anybody or robbed a bank. I mean, I'm not that bad. Well, that's the kind of thing that my mind tells me, and
Absolutely.
it
Absolutely.
plays tricks on me. Like, okay, Joe Blow down the street, he did some time. I mean, you're not as bad as him, and you don't have a felony. Well, I did get a felony eventually, but um, and so that's really been my life. It's just been in and out of jails and institutions, and just I get a feeling really good in this program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and and then I just think that I don't really need it, and I end up
Go
stepping
right now.
out,
So let me
and
let
then
me
yep, go ahead,
interrupt you there. Let me
go ahead.
interrupt you there. So you had a childhood that wasn't ideal, or like most people would think. That's the 2.5 kids in the house and all of those
Hmm.
things. But let me ask you, how long have you been on this recovery journey? Your
Well, I
first
got
recollection.
Well, I got in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous at age 19, and that was 1996. That was the time when you could still, smoke in the rooms. So that was a long time ago. I like to say I first got sober in the 1900s. The longer the time goes, the people kind of laugh at that more. The younger
Absolutely.
kids mostly do. The older ones are like, yeah, I was, got recovery in the 1900s too. But yeah,
Abs-
1996, and then
ab-
like I said, that was my first experience.
Absolutely. I started back in 1991. If you don't mind
Oh
me
yeah.
asking, what is your sobriety date?
So my sobriety date is March 12th, 2023, and that's been
Awesome.
changed a few times. Let me tell you.
Awesome. Yes, as mine has.
Yeah,
Well, I
good.
welcome you to the podcast. I'm glad you are came on and are willing to share some of your experience, strength, and hope with us. And it's just amazing how our journeys and our paths cross once first, and now that
Hmm.
how the journey of this recovery and everything self love and recovery has worked out in its favor. So I just want to ask you a few more questions. The first one, I guess, would be what has been the most important aspect of your self love journey in maintaining your sobriety?
Well, as they say, I can't do this on my own. I need the help of another person that has gone through the same situation. I needed to find, I grew up in a Catholic home. I knew an understanding of God. I keep that understanding of my higher power as God. But that connection that I have with God, I only can find it really in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's the only way that I've really had that connection was being in Alcoholics Anonymous. Because if I'm not in the rooms, I'm far away from God, in my understanding. So that fellowship, I have a hard time sometimes in groups of people and being vulnerable in that aspect. But this is something I need to do for my recovery. And my sponsor tells me I have to do it. So you know what? I listen and I do it. So that has been a joy. And then working with others, working with newcomers, that's a joy as well. And that just reminds me of how it used to be like. Like
Right.
I don't really need a reminder, but some days I do because I really think, I got this thing figured out, which obviously we
Absolutely.
never figure it out. But yeah, that's the way I've been able to maintain the sobriety is working with others and being able to be in and active in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Awesome. Well, being a part of the program and the fellowship is one of the major points. I did hear you say something about a sponsor, and I have to
Hmm.
always determine or specify in this setting that a sponsor is not a guy that's going to sit down and hold your hand or be your banker or hit you over the head or drag you and make you do things. I'm grateful that you mentioned your sponsor and that my sponsor
Hmm.
was one that would give me suggestions. He heard my fourth and fifth step. I did my fourth step, and then, the fifth step said admitted to God, to another human being, the exact nature
Hmm.
of our wrongs. And so that's what a sponsor is here. And I'm glad that you have worked or working in the process of working the 12 steps and the
Yeah,
12 step. Go ahead.
I actually, this last time, my last DUI in which I got March 11th, 2023. Um, I was in and out of the rooms. Like I was one foot in, one foot out. You know what I mean? Like I
Let me
told
ask
my
you, let me
yep,
stop you there. What's the
okay.
longest sobriety you put together?
I had 2.5 years of sobriety with little to none recovery. Like I did not get through my steps. I did not. I was very little involved in my service work.
Okay.
I mean, all these things and what had happened was that my daughter, who was 6 at that time, her mother died from this
Mm,
disease. I was not with her at the time,
sorry to
but
hear that.
I thank you. And that was back in 2017. I had 2.5 years of sobriety. Oh, hey, I can take care of another human, right? And I wasn't ready. And eventually I quit going to meetings because my focus was on the 6-year-old daughter. She's going to keep me sober. Like that's the kind of mindset that I had at that time. I was not spiritually fit, I was not involved in the program. And eventually, the storm does come and if it comes and we're not ready, in my experience, I go back out eventually.
Absolutely.
So,
Bill's story, he says, least I enlarge my spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, I
mhm,
will not be able to meet the certain trials and hard spots that's coming. Didn't
that's
say if I
beautiful.
was drinking or if I was sober or
Yeah.
if I had a family or whatever. It says
Hmm.
I to enlarge my spiritual life. And that's, I believe, was the beginning of a spiritual connection to me. Because when you said spirituality and God, I went right back to the old religion that I had, the
Yeah.
religiosity, the man in the sky, the one that's going to
Hmm.
come down and never slap the drink out of my hand, or the individual that gave me free will and going to send me to hell if I don't do his will. So
Hmm.
today, working the 12 steps, I found a connection with the power greater than myself that loves me no matter what. And I have to enlarge
Absolutely.
that through you people in these rooms and the fellowship of
Absolutely.
Alcoholics Anonymous. So
Absolutely.
thank you for sharing that. So love of family, love of people. There's a portion in the book that says, well, you think he would stop. I think it's more about alcoholism, but either way, it
Hmm.
says you think he would stop. You think he would, because of his love for his family and love of this and that. And as you stated when you
Yeah.
started off, it was nothing. The minute I
Hmm.
ingest alcohol, ain't no all bets off. It's gonna be
Hmm.
the rapacious creditor. It's gonna be the director of my life.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for sharing. How has your recovery journey influenced your understanding and practice of self love?
What is, just getting to meetings and listening to other people and has helped me. They share that about, how things get better and the promises that come that happen once we, are working the steps and working with others. So my self-love. it's sometimes hard for me to say that word self-love because sometimes I don't feel like I deserve it,
Absolutely.
like you can you identify what your definition is of self-love?
I can, I'm glad you asked me. You're going to change the interview to me. I appreciate it. I like to talk anyway. I'm a podcast host, so I love to talk. I've had several meanings of self love, but right now, if I had to give it a specific definition, it would be doing the things I need to do to be a better me today.
Okay.
You mentioned the ninth step promises. It says if we're painstaking about this phase of our development, we'll be amazed before we're halfway through. We'll know a new freedom, and I could go on a new happiness. We will
Hmm.
not regret the past. We'll not shut the door on it. All of those things. So my definition today of self-love was I found the blueprint to more peace and happiness by discovering, discarding, and dealing with my childhood trauma. I
Mm,
acknowledged that I had some trauma.
mm,
And then I started working on it, identifying where it came from, all of that stuff.
mm,
And then I had to forgive the individual or the
hmm,
individuals,
hmm.
whatever that was. I had to find a way to forgive. And the minute I forgave them, then I had to swing right back around and forgive myself, because some of that
Mm,
trauma I enjoyed. I kind of treated it over here and I held on to it,
mm.
how some people hold on to anger and hold on to
Yeah.
you wronged me and all of these things. So that's my definition. Thank you for it. Now I
Oh,
feel like I did.
yeah, that makes it more sense for me. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so self love today, man, is just doing the things necessary to take care of myself today. I'm an alcoholic. The doctor's opinion says that I suffer from a threefold disease. It's spiritual, physical, and mental. Soon as I get to
Mm.
physical, soon as I stop drinking, whether it's an hour, 24 hours, 6 months, in my case, 15 years, 359 days, as
Awesome.
long as I don't put that alcohol back in my body, I have a chance to straighten out spiritually and mentally.
Hmm.
But it took something larger than myself to help me with that spiritual connection. See, because I tell them all the time, I came in here with 3 college degrees and 2 ex-marriages, and I still was lost. I had no clue why I behaved the way I did. And now I found out
Hmm.
that it was selfishness and self centeredness. Page 62 of the big book. I suffer from 100 forms of fear. Fear, selfishness, it has 3 or 4 different things it talks about. And
Self-seeking motives.
self-seeking, yes. Page 62. I'll pull the book out if I need to,
Yeah.
but really, says we suffer from 100 forms of fear, and
Hmm.
that suffering caused me all kind of coping mechanisms and things to do to come in here, and so I'm grateful today. I'm grateful to, as crazy it might sound, I am grateful to have relapsed this last time and got beat down to a sense of reasonableness. I got beat down so far that some people know my porta john. I got stuck in the porta john for 2.5 hours.
Wow. Oh my
1:30 in
God.
the morning. Nobody outside. Nobody locked me in there besides me, my mental state, and and that's what drove me back into these rooms, man. I was out of my mind. So
Wow.
anyway, I'm glad you asked the question. What strategies or tools have you found most effective in navigating life's challenges while staying sober?
Uh, what tools? The tools that have been given to me from my sponsor, from just going to meetings, is just being active. This is an action program. So, like, being a service, I have two commitments through Zoom, one meeting in the east side and one meeting on the west side of the United States. And I'm caught right in the middle. I love it. I'm actually doing one tonight in LA, and my first time in that meeting to be in secretary. So really being involved, and getting out because that really gets me out of my head is when I'm, involved in this program and being a service is one of the biggest things, really. Jails, I go to jails every now and then, and I've been in the treatments. I've spoken some treatments too in the area. Um, and so, and then, I mean, this platform here, I've done a podcast before. I haven't ran it, but I've done it. I just share my experience, strength, and hope. And I love this platform. This is a great platform to spread the message. And that's exactly what what God, I believe, is has me to do for my purpose in life. So,
Awesome. Has your perspective on living life on life's terms evolved throughout your journey, and how?
well, I'm in a work in progress with that because I still have those character defects such as anger, you know, selfishness and self-centeredness. But I believe, and I can only say this for me, but I feel that I'm pausing a lot more. My first thought is always wrong, so I don't go on that. So I pause
Hmm.
and ask God. Sometimes I have to leave the situation. I have to physically take myself out of it until I'm ready to deal with it. Now that's I that yeah, that's a work in progress, but I believe, pausing and asking God to help me, or asking, or calling somebody about it
Absolutely.
before I take that first thought. Because like I said, that first thought is always wrong for me, and that's just my experience.
Right. And a lot of people will argue with that, man, you smart. Well, a lot of people will argue because they say you're intelligent individuals. You do all of these other things in the book.
Hmm.
And a lot of people, when I came through recovery, I was a big book quoter. I could quote the big book, but that didn't keep me out of bars and out of that porta jar. The
Yeah,
knowledge unapplied
right.
is just knowledge, man. So
Oh yeah,
that's
exactly.
amazing you would say that. But yes, working with others and participating, getting out of my mind, pausing, that
Hmm.
is so did you I'm trying to figure out how to ask that. Were you knowledgeable of these types of actions prior to the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, or did you learn them through the
No, I
process?
this is the process of Alcoholics Anonymous. I've heard it, like back when I was 19, when I first entered the rooms. I'm sure they said it, you know
Hmm.
what I mean? But it just went in one ear and out the other because I was so into myself that, at that time it wasn't, things weren't that bad. Now I learned to listen and I listen to learn. You know what I mean? Like this is sometimes I just need to shut the heck up and listen.
So I'm gonna take a side note. I'm laughing with you, sort of, kind of. Here's a guy that says, only 4 or 5 DWIs, only this, only that. A
I
few
don't say
jails.
it. I don't say it. That's my mind telling me that.
Yes, that's amazing. Yeah, I've been into a few scrapes, and it got worse for me. Once I relapsed after 15 years, and so I ended up start going to jails. I went to
Hmm.
jail 2 nights in a row. I ended up being diagnosed with schizophrenia for about eight days straight. Well, actually 8 days. They got me in there, and it's a story that I'm sure have come out before. But I drank from 2016 till about 2018, and somewhere along there, my 15, I think she was 15 or 16 years old at the time, had
Hmm.
to call the police on me because I would not allow their mother out of the room. I was not physically holding them, but I was sitting
Yeah.
next to the door, and I would not. No, you cannot go. You're going to go get them folks on me. And so my daughter actually went and got them folks on me, and
Oh
I've
boy.
I've asked her for forgiveness, and I've tried to
Hmm.
make amends, and
Yeah.
she has walked back into my life
Beautiful.
and treats
Beautiful.
me, like her dad. And that's only
Hmm.
because of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. But they took me outside, put me in the back seat of that cruiser, and that guy got to asking me questions. And he said, "Yeah, something ain't quite right with this fella." And he called the family unit, and they interviewed me, and they took me straight to the psych ward instead of back to
Hmm.
jail. My ex was actually pleading with them, like, "Look, he just got out of jail. He don't need to go back to jail. That's not my husband."
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so that's been
Yeah.
my experiences. So
Wow.
it's amazing thing how these 12 steps. And the reason I asked you was I know that I've had a psychic change, which the program says is required for a
Hmm.
successful consummation.
Yeah.
Some of my shares, I tell them all the time that, okay, y'all convinced me that, step one, I admitted my life was unmanageable and that, I can't control alcohol. Step two came to believe that a power greater than me could restore me to sanity. So that means I'm admitting I'm insane and I need you insane people in these rooms to help me stay sober one day at a time. That's crazy.
It
But
is.
anyway, let me go with it. In what ways has your childhood trauma, if any, played a role in your recovery and self love journey? And again, don't, say anything that needs to be on the fifth step or whatever. Don't trigger yourself or anybody, but just a general.
Yeah. No, like I said, when I was adopted at 5, I lost a lot of things at a young age. And I'm not talking about the physical things. I'm talking about the my heritage, my language, all that was lost. Like I've come to accept who I am. The only way I know some days is that I am not white is when I look in the mirror. That's the only other way, you know what I mean? Like I have this identity issue that I don't really struggle with it as much as I used to, but that's just the other thing of not, like every alcoholic has said in these rooms is you feel like you don't fit in, like you're
Wow.
just not, you don't belong in this planet. Like that is, I use that excuse of, well, I was adopted. I have a unique story. You know what I mean?
Right.
I have it worse than you. You guys have a family. You have a heritage. You have, culture, things like that. You have, your parents, you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't have that. The only blood people that I know is my kids. That's
Wow.
the only thing I have. But, like I said, that was a long time ago. I've come to accept that. And people are like, well, why don't you just, go back there? I mean, like, okay, how am I gonna do that? You know what I mean? Like that is not like one of my priorities, you know what I mean? Like, sure. I mean, if I had lots and lots of money, maybe I would, but that's still gonna, it might trigger some. I doubt it, but you know, but yeah, anytime I run into a fellow Colombian or something like that, then it's just like, ooh, because there are not many around here in the Fargo Moorhead area in North
Mm.
Dakota. But when I do, I'm just like, oh yeah, and of course they laugh because I don't speak Spanish, and they're just like, what? How can you lose a language? Is that even possible? And I'm like,
Right.
yeah, it is in my story, but.
Wow.
So yeah, that's the thing that, just the childhood, and my grand excuse me, not my grandma, my mom, my adopted mom, the day she told me she was going to call the orphanage and have me sent back, that day I knew that her and I's relationship was going to be different.
Right.
It was never the same after that. I couldn't trust her.
Hmm.
And of course, she wasn't going to send me back, but she threatened me at a young age that she was going to send me back. And I knew then that, you know, it- yeah, I might have played the middle age or the middle child syndrome thing, but I, yeah, I struggled with having a relationship. I still do. She's still alive, but I look at it this way that I'm better off just not having a relationship. I have reached out. My sponsor has told me to reach out and talk to her and make sure it's all about her, not about me, and not saying all the things that she did,
Right. Right.
and that's a growing thing that I learned in this program is
Right.
to kind of what do they say, tear down those vertical barriers
Absolutely.
and so they can become horizontal bridges, you know.
Absolutely.
But with
Absolutely.
her, with it might be a little bit more. It might take some more time, but
Well, that's part of the ninth step, make direct amends to such people
hmm
whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. And the ironic part is, I was working with a sponsee, and he was like, "But I don't see I don't see where I did something wrong. Let me go back to
yeah,
myself. Let me keep it on myself." I was trying to think, was it something? No, I could always point the finger at myself and say, yeah, well, you messed that up, or, you did
Uh-huh.
this. But my point being is, sometimes things are done to us with my childhood trauma. Sometimes things are done with me. And it's like, look, I was a kid. How did this happen to me? I guarantee you I didn't have anything to do with it. Well,
Hmm.
my portion in it, what my sponsor helped me look at and helped me to see was that I didn't tell on the adult. I didn't do
Hmm.
anything. I kept that and
Hmm.
nurtured it. And I
Yeah,
chased it, and
right,
it was so
right.
elusive that I wanted it more and more. Not saying that that's the case in you, but sometimes,
Hmm.
something is done to us, and the 12 steps shows us how to to look at our side of it. And sometimes it's hard to see our side of it, whether it's I didn't tell on somebody, or whether I took it and done it to somebody else, or whether I,
Yeah,
whatever
well,
held onto it.
I mean, I like to play that victimese card, you know what I mean? Like I
Absolutely.
was a victim and I used that.
Right.
Like you guys don't understand. I drink this much because of my mom, or
Right.
I drink this much because I was adopted and or my ex-wife or my wife or you know what I mean? Like you fill in the blank with that.
Right. Well,
Because
I have a video somewhere in this same podcast platform that talks about, and I read this and it hit me like a brick in the face, and I had to do a small video about it. It was, how long will I allow my past to control my future?
Mhm.
I was like, wow. And
Yeah.
that's where my childhood trauma and started undigging that.
Yeah.
And I spent about 5 months here in this apartment praying, meditating, and journaling.
Hmm.
I went to work, I came home. Did I go to meetings? I went to a meeting. That was it. I didn't do no
Yeah.
dating. I didn't go roller skating. I didn't do all the things I loved because I knew I had a problem. After working my fifth step, my sponsor says, there's some other aides that might be able to help you. You might
Yeah.
need to go to this
Yeah.
alcohol, the sexual anonymous, or this or that. And I dug deep and I found some
Mm.
things that helped me. And actually, I wrote a book called Four Powerful Strategies to Heal from Trauma. And I'll try to remember to get you a link to that.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's the book is, I would downplay the book, but really it was the things that I did to discover, discard, and deal with my childhood trauma.
Hmm.
And so I'm excited about that. It'll be on Amazon for Black Friday for sure, maybe even before then. But of course, I
Awesome.
have a transcript and try to get it to you.
Appreciate that.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. How do you prioritize self care and self love in your daily life as someone in recovery?
Well, it's always number one, God and recovery. That's always never, that's never going to change. Like I told you before about, my child who lost her mother, she became priority. That was number one. Today and there's a lot of, my girlfriend isn't all on board with this,
Yes, yes.
going to do fellowship, doing me. What? You're gonna be gone again? I mean, you know, um, she doesn't understand. I try to, explain to her. My sister, I mean, people that don't understand. I got to do these things. Otherwise, I'm not going to stay sober. And if I don't, or I become worse yet, a dry drunk, and you don't want to be around me when I'm a dry drunk. I have nothing but, sobriety. And so that's what I do. I prioritize um, my recovery, number one, and then everything else falls in place after that. Uh,
Wow. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. No, that's it.
And that's the great fact, or the great. A lot of people look at recovery and alcoholism and programs like this as, oh, you're just weak. Why don't you do it for them? Why you should be strong enough. And that's why I told you when I
Mm,
first came in here. I had 3 college degrees. I'm a master
mhm.
electrician. I fix things for life. You know, my degrees are in business and project management and all that stuff. I deal with electricity, man. That's some dear stuff. So I thought I could fix myself. But when I
Right.
say that, yeah, I got to do these things for the rest of my life, one day at a time. And again, I
Mm,
said the same thing to my fiance. You do not want to see me without me going to a meeting, without me
Oh
catching my
God.
meetings, without me working with other alcoholics.
Hmm.
And there's going to be times that somebody call me at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, if not one or two, and I'm going to have to take the call. And that was
Hmm.
established from the first day I met her, and she respects that.
Hmm.
Sometimes you don't understand it. People who's not addicted or have alcoholism cannot understand this. Why don't
Hmm.
the story in the book says, why don't you just quit? Do you have to
Hmm.
drink it all? These are things that I was asked all the time. Just don't, just
Oh,
try beer instead of alcohol. Don't go
oh,
smoke no crack today.
exactly.
What?
Yeah.
Drink a beer. Can't you have a glass of champagne? All of
Mm.
these things. That's the great obsession of every drinker. The book talks about the great obsession of every alcoholic is that he will be able to control his drinking
Yeah.
like normal people. I never drank normal. I always drank too much. I always did anything too much. So, wow, that's amazing.
Right.
Good.
Right.
What works for me though is they don't have to understand. I have to understand.
Uh-huh.
I have to be totally convinced that left to my own devices, I
Eh,
will drink again.
Yeah,
Period.
and I have people at work that ask me, why don't you ever come out with us? Because that's what they do on Sundays after work, because I work weekends.
Okay.
And yeah, Sunday comes around, Sunday night, and they're just like, why don't you ever come out? And I really just say, I just don't drink. I don't drink anymore. And
Right.
if they ask any more questions, then I'll, go a little bit more into it. I'm just like, I don't want to go to jail. And
Exactly.
then I'll go even more if they want to. You know what I mean? Like, I will tell them, there's one time they're like, yeah, so and so, man, they were running around with their pants down and getting all crazy. And I'm like, that's why I don't go out with you guys, because that's what
Yeah.
I look like. I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you that right now. And they're just like,
Absolutely.
no, just have a couple.
Just have a
Like,
couple.
just have a couple. I mean, dude, yeah, I mean, if I could, yeah, I mean, even if I could, I wouldn't, because I love this way of life. It
Absolutely.
is I used to not say this, but I love being sober. Like I never had that. Like that's the miracle of not the fact that I'm sober, but the fact that I want to be sober is the miracle, I think, for me, anyways, that I say that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. The
yeah.
12 steps have made me closer to 100% human being than I've ever been in a long time.
Mm,
Not that I wasn't before, but I finally did some work and found out some other things that I'd blocked out in my childhood. And I'm glad that I learned about the coping mechanisms and the things, the lying, cheating, stealing things, time or life or whatever. We used to say we used to smoke and drink people, we'd go out and just
mm,
drink and use people for our feelings, and
yeah.
control things of that nature. So, you know, it's just a beautiful thing when I do work the 12 steps and I can see that what we call the dead people come to life. I was a walking zombie coming in here. I had no motivation, I had no enthusiasm. My whole life surrounded about the next drink. If we were
Mm,
going to a party, I had to have a drink going with me. If we were
hmm.
whatever, I planned my whole life around that. So, wow,
Yeah,
man,
what a
this has been
freedom.
great.
What a freedom it is
We're
to
free
not
now.
have that.
Yeah,
And how free, like one of my sponsors says, how free do you want to be? And I'm
yeah.
like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, he made it self, like, how much, you're gonna get what you put into this program. And I've seen that, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, because of my years, 20 some years being in and out, and I
Yeah,
put very little into the program. That's exactly what I got back out.
yeah.
But
It's a sentence in the book that says half measure availed us nothing.
oh yeah,
It didn't say we get half. Half
it
measured
took
availed us
me
nothing.
not it took me a long time to realize what that actually meant, and like, yeah, man.
Great stuff, my man. How has the concept? Or let me ask you this: what advice would you give to others who are struggling with maintaining their sobriety while also practicing self love?
I would tell them to that you don't have to do this alone. Like
Yes.
we and it can be overwhelming because when I first came in, they said do this one day at a time. What I heard was you have to quit for the rest of your life. You
Right.
know what I mean? It can be overwhelming, but you know what? You stick around. They say the winners, I say like the long timers, the people that have gone through this program and the 12 steps and have sponsors,
Mm.
stick around them, see what, how they do things and get a sponsor and then be active in Alcoholics Anonymous, either through Zoom, whatever platform it may be.
Right.
And then be a service. Like I said, I will stress on service so much with the newcomer because that's where it got me out of my head
Yes.
and it helped, helping others, and it wasn't about me anymore. So that's one of the things that I've would help, share with somebody that's brand new. And then
Yes.
if somebody is a chronic relapser like I've been, I'm just saying, hey, you're here. Now let's get to work. Like, you know what you got to do. You've been through this before, but you got to take some action. It's not
Absolutely.
going to just be like given to you. You got to take some kind of action. And then, the higher power, what is your higher power? And it will come. I mean, you stick around long enough and it
Yeah.
can be whatever. I don't always agree with the whole doorknob thing because I mean, I never got that because you're gonna let me pick my own higher power. Okay, well, it could be a stripper from the strip club. I mean, you know what I mean? That's where my thinking gets me to
Absolutely.
be like, oh, okay, I'll pick a higher power. But anyways, that's been my experience. Is just I've been lucky enough to have that at a young age. To my understanding of a higher power is through organized religion. But I won't go there too because I get really heated when people talk about
Understand.
uh, bashing religion or bashing people that don't have religion. You know what I mean? Like our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help another alcoholic out, not to convince somebody, you know, these people are good, you should vote for these people. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
no, because it
Outside
will it
issues.
will it will scare the newcomer. And I'm trying
Absolutely.
to be like, I put myself in that situation. Like if I'm the newcomer and somebody's talking about bashing a certain religion or bashing that you can't stay sober if you don't find God, that would tell me to be like, I don't want to be here. Like, I just
Right.
want to stay sober. I don't care who you vote for. Like, so that's one thing that I try to stress on my newcomers is just stick with the primary purpose.
And there's every walk of life here. And my
Yeah.
experience with spirituality, I call myself now the bleeding deacon in our meeting in the mornings because I will quote the big book. I will
Hmm.
control the room. I will try to make sure that everybody's safe. And
Mm.
and I tell them all the time. I had a friend that was a deacon, and I told him I envied his life, and he stood up and said, "Brother Holmes wants to be a deacon." I said, "Fantastic! Yeah, that'll make me a better man. I'll stop drinking. It'll
Hmm.
make me a better husband." This was in '90, I think, back in 1990.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm dating myself. But either way, I don't say that religion failed me. I felt religion. I didn't practice it the
Hmm.
way it was taught to me or
Yeah.
however it was. But this last time that I came in, I told you about the other A's and I told you about the spiritual aspect, but I met a guy online. I say I met him. I started listening to a guy named Michael Beckwith, and one day he talked about the acorn and the mighty oak. And the oak tree or the acorn had everything in it needed to be a mighty oak.
Mm.
And it must have been fertile ground or something. I must have been working on myself. But that gave me a whole perspective on spirituality and a power greater than
Right.
myself. And
Yeah.
so that's where I started leaning towards it.
Hmm.
It would raise the eyebrows of a lot of people that knew me when I was coming
Yeah.
through the church. Like, you don't believe in what? And I'm not saying I don't believe, but
Yeah. Absolutely.
there's a
I believe
creator.
this program works.
Absolutely. It works in me. We call them
It
group of
does.
drunks. That they say come
Yeah,
use the group
I
of drunks
definitely.
or whatever. And I'm glad
Good
that they
worldly
gave
direction.
us each the opportunity to find a power outside of ourselves that could restore me to sanity, that could remove
Yeah.
the seemingly hopeless state of mind and body that I was in when I
Mm.
came into these rooms. So,
Hmm.
how has the concept of forgiveness, both of oneself and others, been instrumental in your journey of self love and recovery?
Yeah, that is one of the things that I've still continue to struggle with is forgiving myself because I tend to go back and rewind the tape and oh my goodness, I'm doing it right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
rewind that tape and right away it's, they would have had a better dad if I would have done this, if I would have got sober earlier, if I, or just forgiving myself, I'm not where I want to be as far as career wise or job wise, but I'm accepting where I'm at today and where God has put me exactly where I'm supposed to be at exactly,
man.
um so yeah, it's basically myself that I need to try to forgive and be like, and it, I get caught up every now and then, but it's very short term. Like it
That's
doesn't
good.
last long because it usually is like what, like I tell my like I didn't even know what I was thinking about, but because this is why this program is so important for me is so I don't stay in my head and try to convince myself that I'm a piece of what.
Right,
It's I have other alcoholics tell me and and show me like, hey, you're doing a good job. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
and I love that. And that's something that I've pretty much been trying to find like since I was little.
Well, I'll give you my life hack on forgiveness and forgiveness of others, and it has worked for me. And I had a sponsor way back in 2000. And this guy is still in my life and still just
Hmm.
as crazy as ever. But it's something when I owe somebody some money
Hmm.
and they're beating on my door. It could be a dollar. It could be, I always use the scenario of a dollar. When I owe somebody a dollar and they're knocking on my door asking me, where's my money? I'm like, man, it's only a dollar, man. Leave me alone. What are you doing? It's a dollar. But turn the shoe around and let you owe me a dollar? Oh, I'm beating your door down. And, the world is going to end if you don't give me my dollar. So I use that as an analogy for my life is that I have to let the other person make it. No matter what they're doing in my life, no matter what they've done, no matter what I've done, I did the best I could do with what I had the decision or the things to do with at that time. It's not that I'm a bad person. I just did the best thing I could do at that time. And I'm a firm
Absolutely.
believer of that, and I learned that through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I got to let the other person make it. And if I let the other person make it, I got to let myself make it. And yes, all of
Yeah.
that stuff sometimes is still running around there, but I guarantee you there's a nerve that goes from your fingertip to the base of your brain. And if I write stuff on a regular basis, that nerve, and I'm getting up because I'm going to not only tell you about it, there's a nerve that runs from my brain to the bottom of my skull. And if I write that stuff down,
Mm.
I
Yeah.
get it out of my head because it's fiction as long as it's running around in my head. It's
Sure.
fiction. See that?
Yeah.
That's one. That's number two. That's number three. And it's half full. I'm going to the store today to buy two more to make sure that I can keep the same format. I love it. I'm a blue individual. I love it. It's the moon, it's the stars, it's all the things that was promised to me, no matter what I
Hmm.
do. If I jump up and down, turn around three times, God is not going to love me no more or any less. He put
Hmm.
everything in me to be the person that I need to be. And he put everything in the acorn for it to be an oak tree. That's
That's
where I
awesome.
get, that's my life hack, man. I no longer adhere to, if I think, for a long time, I thought if I thought about sin or going to pick up chick or Junebug's little
Hmm.
sister or whatever, then I might as well do it because I'm already going to hell. God's going to condemn me because I thought of
Yeah.
sin. Sin is a sin is a sin. And so
Hmm.
I had to let myself make it. And that wasn't easy to do. And trust me, that was not easy to do. But all of that journaling since April 2023 to
Hmm.
now, And I will continue to do that. My routine is I wake up at 4:45 almost every day.
Good.
Some days I stay in, but I pray, I meditate, I journal, I read something positive in the morning, then I start my day. But if I don't do those three things, by 2 or 3 days later, I can see the difference. I know the difference. And I might write something simple as, man, I had a great time like yesterday. Or man, I
Hmm.
woke up on the wrong side of the bed and this, that. I don't have any particular format anymore. It's just, wow, what a wonderful day to be alive, Wendell. It's a great
Hmm.
day today. That's the first thing I tell myself. Well, actually, I tell myself 10 or 30 times in the mirror when I go to the bathroom first thing in the morning is I love you. And I look in the mirror and I love you, I love you, I love you. I'm loved, I'm loving, I'm lovable. And that little
Great.
life hack between that, prayer meditation, journaling, going to a meeting, helping a mofo, and all of those things, my
Yeah,
life has changed. I'm happier than I've ever been in my life, man. And that's hard
I
to say.
love that. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing that. That's great.
absolutely.
I love
That's a
that.
life hack. One last thing, what does the phrase you love you mean to you in the context of sobriety and self-love?
Can you repeat that? You love.
You love you. And I'll tell you, wait, I don't have it here. During one of my journaling sessions, this is my war room here.
The
Everything went
war.
on here
Yeah.
in this room.
Yeah.
But during one of my journaling sessions, actually, I could pull it up in the book. I know I could. The words came to life on this page. And this is the wrong book. No, yeah, this is the wrong book. This is 2024. Anyway, the word you came to life on the page. It was a Y with a heart in the middle of it. My O actually looked like a heart and a U. And I seen that and I'm steady writing and I go back past it and I know some people think I'm crazy, but it looked like sometimes I can see eyes from the page looking back at me and it said, when do you need to love yourself? And I wrote that down and I tried to claim it as a .com. Somebody had You Love You, so I made You Love You LLC. I've LLC'd my company and it's
Hmm.
been on up ever since then, man. But that's, yeah, journaling, man, journaling. That's what I think that's why it's so important to do the fourth step, to write that stuff
Definitely.
down. A lot of people like to say, oh, let's just, I'll do it electronically or whatever. There's a nerve, remember, there's a nerve that goes from here to there. And I can prove
That's
it because
great.
I passed the City of Houston Master's exam. I had over 1,500 index cards.
Oh,
And my instructor told me, Oliver, he used to call me Oliver. He says, Oliver, there's a nerve. If you write these questions down, you'll remember them. The first section of that master's exam was 4 hours of closed book, 100 questions, multiple choice, and I had to memorize them. There was no other way.
wow.
I wrote 1,500 cards. That was
Crazy.
back in 94, 95.
Hmm.
Fast forward to 23. I'm writing and I haven't stopped writing since. So anyway,
That's
sorry,
awesome.
you let me go off on my
No, that's
own.
okay. That's
But
great.
you love you, the
No,
phrase
you.
was coined by me, and
Hmm.
forgiveness for me was, the beginning of me loving myself and getting to the
Mm.
bottom of the trauma. I didn't say the trauma caused me to be an alcoholic. It caused me to have a lot of bad behaviors,
Right.
which most of them are corrected now. So
I, I would,
anyway,
I
go
would
ahead.
think that for that, like do something that for myself. I mean, I've talked to my sponsees before, and I said, okay, what have you done for your recovery today? What have you, and then I'll say, have you done something for yourself? Like going to get a haircut or going to whatever,
Mm-hmm.
getting a body massage or whatever it is. So I think that's important too, is to make sure you set some time for yourself. Like, for me, it's just listening to like music or maybe watching a movie, just me and
Mm-hmm.
myself, nobody else, just, something I enjoy. Um, but yeah, that's basically what I try to do is as long as I've doing, helping somebody else out throughout the day, there's time for ourselves as well.
Absolutely. So, the 12th step, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to the alcoholic who is still suffering and practice these principles in all of our affairs. And that's what this podcast, Everything Self Love and Recovery, is all about, is sharing the message of self love. You can love yourself. I learned to love myself once again through prayer, meditation, journaling, working the 12 steps, helping another mofo. That's the sponsor of this program, helpamofo.com. I have a
Hmm.
Shopify store that has all kind of different gears, sweatshirts, t-shirts, helmets, coffee mugs, whatever. So I appreciate you being here. I appreciate
Yeah.
you responding, and it's been a great. I, I just appreciate your truth and honesty. And
Well, thank you so much for allowing me to, be on this platform. Like I said, this is another way for us to send that message of hope, because there is hope in this program. And I'm just grateful for you, Wendell. And I'm going to ask you later on to help one of my meetings. So,
absolutely,
because I need you to speak, because I want to hear your story.
absolutely, I'll be
So
more
I
than
look,
do it.
all right. I'll let, well, what are you, West Coast, East Coast?
I'm the
Where
East
are you at?
Coast, East Coast.
East Coast.
Yeah,
Ooh, I might be late for you, but I
that's
don't
all
know.
right.
We'll figure
You
it out. We'll
asked.
figure something out.
I don't say no when somebody
I
asks me to show
appreciate
up,
you,
and of
Wendell.
course, I like to talk anyways.
Yeah. Well, hey, there's a message inside you that needs to come out, and I love it, and I want others to experience that. So I appreciate you, Wendell.
Well, I appreciate you as well. Thank you so much for being here,
All right.
and we look forward to talking to you soon.